Great. Am I forgetting anything, Alex?
I think you're good, Em. You want to take it away?
Sounds good. All right, so hello everyone. If you're just tuning in, my name is Emily Ballou. I am a senior here at Middlebury College, as well as a senior fellow for the Office of Admissions with Alex. I'm a double major in American Studies and Theater with concentrations in journalism and acting, a focus in Asian American Studies, and a dual emphasis in cultural politics and race and ethnicity. Very long title, I know. I don't think they're going to print that on my diploma, but we'll see. The other sort of momentous thing about myself is that on campus, I really love to be involved. I do a lot of different performing arts like sketch comedy and theater and dance. Um, I play some I am soccer and softball, and I'm on a few different committees around campus. But when I am not in rehearsal or doing something else, I really love to spend in a non-pandemic year, of course. My Sunday mornings have a really leisurely 4-hour brunch with my friends in a dining hall, and then heading outside to play a really competitive game of pickup wiffle ball on one of the beautiful greens on campus. But something that might hopefully be of interest to you all is that I'm also actually from Vermont too. So I am from the little old town of South Royalton. If you don't know who we are, it's probably because we're a D4 school. And it's down in more the central region of the state. And I've lived there, grown up my entire life. And as we all know, Vermont, beautiful place to live and to learn and grow up in, with all of our flannels and cows and creamies. And if you're somehow tuning in with us and you don't know what a creamy is, you're just in luck because we're heading into creamy season, and that's our version of a soft serve ice cream cone. And definitely a lot of places around the state to get your creamy fix, especially around the Middlebury College area as well. But back to me being a Vermonter. I've absolutely loved growing up here. The foliage of the fall is beautiful. Everything that comes to life in the spring and the summer months when it's green. And of course, our wonderful winter with all the snow. Maybe it's snowing where you are in the state today. It is snowing a little bit here in Middlebury, but we're certainly not letting that put a damper on our plans for you this afternoon. But as I was back in your shoes a few years ago at this point, I was actually looking to leave Vermont. And as much as I'd loved growing up in a really tiny rural community, I wanted to get way out of Dodge and get to someplace the complete opposite of what I'd known and grown up with. So I ended up looking at a lot of large universities in urban areas. Those were sort of where I was gravitating towards. But I very quickly realized that maybe was not exactly what I wanted to do just yet. But still, I was on the search. I had my bags all packed, ready to go, moved to the big city, and I very quickly realized that after a few different college visits, I did not want to be sitting in a lecture hall with hundreds of other students, but I wanted to be in a smaller, more intimate setting where I would actually know my professor and the peers around me and be able to make those close connections so much easier in a smaller setting, such as Middlebury College. And so that's where I actually ended up. So fast forward a little bit, it was the fall of 2017 when I first arrived on the Middlebury College campus. Me with my backpack and sneakers on, ready to take on the world after just moving a mere hour and a half away. And the first class I actually ended up taking here was the first year seminar. So Middlebury College has a program called the First Year Seminars, and these are the first courses you ever take when you arrive at Middlebury. And they're really your bridge from your high school or previous educational experience into the college experience. And they help you learn anything from how to write a college level paper to what a real college course is like, finding different resources on campus, either for learning how to do research or getting help sort of starting your paper, all those sort of things. And my first year seminar was called Singing Communities. And in this course, we learned all about how music influences cultures all around the world and people's daily lives. And we also sang quite a bit too each day, which was a lot of fun. Now, not every first year seminar you sing in. Maybe that's your thing, maybe it's not. But the first year seminars, they range in anything from content from learning about how Shakespeare writes his women, to debating different mathematical games of Go, to learning more about astrology and visiting the observatory on some clear nights. And so you can really pick and choose and sort of see all the very different interesting first year seminars that we have that really are changing each year and quite interesting. But the other great thing about the first year seminars is that they're also taught by Middlebury professors. And so these professors act as your first advisor until you declare. So they're there to help you figure out your first fall semester schedule, where to go, where to be, and maybe even help you narrow down which departments you might be interested in potentially majoring in as well. In addition to that, your peers in your class, you're also housed with. Middlebury is a residential college, and the great thing about the first year seminars is that your peers in this class will either be in your same housing cluster on the same floor, hallway, or just the same first year dormitory building. And this really allows those organic bonds to form. And if you luck out and get an early morning class, there is nothing better than being able to have somebody knock on your door that's your neighbor, get you out of bed, go grab a quick breakfast, and get you both to class in time in the morning. So great teamwork right there for sure. My first year seminar was taught by Middlebury College's choir director, actually, Dr. Bittner, and I enjoyed my time in our first year seminar so much that I actually ended up auditioning and joining the college choir. And at the end of my first year, we took a whole international tour to the Baltics. We visited Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, had a wonderful time. Before coming to Middlebury, I had barely traveled out of New England, probably more on less than 5 times. And so being able to have this opportunity that Middlebury afforded me to travel internationally into the Baltics, someplace that I never even thought I'd be able to visit, was definitely a wonderful experience and something that I call one of our favorite mid-moment memories I've made ever since coming here. Middlebury operates on a 4-1-4 semester schedule, meaning that in the fall and spring semesters, we take 4 classes each. And in our very special winter term, which is right in between them and only spans for the month of January, we only take 1 class. Because this 1-month term is in January, we like to call it J-term for short. And this is a time that you can do a deep dive into a topic you're really passionate about or something you have absolutely no clue. And a lot of students choose to do both of those things during their time here at Mid. Now, these classes are very special because they're unlike anything offered during the fall and spring semesters, both because of their content and who they're taught by. Almost like the first year seminar system, these J-term courses are some really interesting topics that you wouldn't see anywhere else. One of my favorite classes I was ever in here at Middlebury, was a class called Discovering the Clown. And I know what you might be thinking, why is there a clown class at college? I don't really know. In real life, I'm terrified of clowns, so maybe not the best idea. But I was very, very relieved to realize that this course was not about the big red nose wearing, huge shoe kind of circus clowns, but was more about the physical embodiment of comedy and the art of making someone laugh, which is a lot harder than you might think, even though I make Alex laugh all the time. And in this course, we not only improved as performers, but also just, I think, as students and as people. And we really worked on our skills of how to gravitate the energy towards the room around us. And so we can confidently walk into a room, whether it is a sports practice, a rehearsal, a class presentation, or an interview, and grab everyone's attention, maybe without even having to say a word, which I think is a very vital life skill that we all now can do very confidently. And this course was taught by a Middlebury alumni who comes back to teach. Middlebury has a really strong alumni network, and we love using J-term to tap into that with a lot of alums coming back to teach J-term courses, just like my clown class. Now, one of my other favorite classes I ever took here at Middlebury also happened to be during J-term, and this was a long-form sports journalism class. And this class was taught by a professional sports writer who used to work for Sports Illustrated and whose writings dealt directly with Michael Jordan, his basketball career. Like, he was Michael Jordan's guy. And so he had so many incredible stories to tell us. And he also introduced us to a lot of different professional sportscasters and sports writers in the industry. And they not only answered all of our questions about what it's like to, work for ESPN and The Athletic and Nesson and all those great sites, but also critique our writing. And so they helped us sort of figure out our writing style and looked at some of the pieces that we were writing in this class. Now, before coming to Middlebury, I was interested in journalism. I'd written and worked for my school newspaper and our local newspaper, and I knew that was definitely something I was interested in. But I wasn't exactly sure what type of journalism. But through this course, I realized that the long-form style of the more in-depth feature pieces was exactly where my passions were and what I was interested in pursuing post-Middlebury, which graduation is coming a lot sooner than we would like. But that class, as well as my clown class in J-term, were so much fun, and I learned so much through them. And because you're only taking one course during J term, you have so much free time just to love experiencing a Vermont winter with all your friends here. A really special thing that's one of my favorite things to do in the fall is when we have the first big snowstorm on campus and you see all the kids who are not from Vermont, like being like, oh no, like I should have brought a warmer coat, or like, when's the snow gonna go away? And sort of watching other people experience their first Vermont winter is always one of my favorite things to happen in the fall. And hopefully you'll be able to experience that and sort of teach all your non New England friends what a winter is like if you come to Middlebury too. One of the great parts about J-Term is also that Middlebury owns two ski centers, the Middlebury College Snow Bowl for your downhill activities, as well as the Reichert Nordic Center for your cross-country endeavors. And if you do not know how to ski or snowboard before coming to Middlebury, J-Term is a great time to take advantage of the student lesson programs going on at the same time. You may fall down a little bit, but it's always such a blast. And if outside activities are not exactly your thing, and then you're more than welcome to also take part in the many different student workshops that are being put on this time that are, run by students. So we really love learning not only from our professors, but also from each other. And this is a great time to do that. You can learn anything from how to go dog sledding to brewing your own kombucha, or if you need a PE credit, feel free to take the tap dancing workshop. I've taught that one in the past, and it's definitely a blast. But you do not have to wait until the winter months to enjoy the really vibrant community life here on campus. We have over 200 student clubs and organizations. And if you don't find something that fits your fancy, then you're more than welcome to start your own club. And there are lots of different resources for support and funding to do so. One of my favorite things about the Middlebury College community is how connected we are and how much we just really love spending time with each other, either on campus or off. One of the ways that I've done that is through the social house that I'm a part of, Tavern. We are the community service social house. And two of our favorite things to do together is volunteering either at the Knoll, which is the college's organic garden here, or going into town and volunteering at the Charter House, which is a place for those who are housing and food insecure, and helping cook a nice Sunday dinner for them in a non-pandemic year. And really spending time volunteering those different ways together. And I guarantee you, you will not find a Middlebury student who hasn't volunteered in some capacity during their time here. I think that's pretty special too. Just very quickly before I wrap up, one thing I have not mentioned yet is the amazing staff and faculty here at Mid. Many of you may know, we were very lucky to have the opportunity and privilege of returning this fall as well as the spring for an in-person on-campus semester. And that would not have been possible without the amazing support and the work and the efforts from the staff here, making sure that everything was safe and healthy and clean for us at all times. And as you can see here from this selfie from homecoming a few years ago with President Patton and one of her dogs, everybody at Mid is also just, I think, really down for any adventure, whether it's going on some random hike after classes someday or stopping for a silly selfie on the side of the road. And that's one of the things I love the most about here. Everybody really loves having you here, and that's something that definitely stood out to me when I was touring campus a few years ago. I'm just going to leave you with this quick photo that I took this fall from a snowbowl sunrise hike with some friends. And yes, campus is this beautiful. As you all know, Vermont is a gorgeous place to sort of live and grow up in. And I just couldn't leave for at least 4 years when I was making my college decision. You all know how great Vermont is, and hopefully, even though you might not remember anything Alex or I say today, this leaves you wanting to learn more about Middlebury, hopefully starting your own application process, and sticking around in our beautiful state for another few years while you're at Mid. So that will do it for me. And now I'm going to turn over to my friend Alex, and he's going to tell you about his Middlebury journey. And at the end, we can answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Em. Hey everyone, my name is Alex Jem. I am from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York, so I'm not originally from Vermont, but I have family down in Rupert, and so part of what's brought me to Middlebury College is that I used to come here a lot just to visit my folks. A little bit about me. I study molecular biology and biochemistry, and I'm minoring in French. I'm also on the pre-med track. The way I decorate my room is I have a periodic table on the wall. I'm a total science nerd. This over here is it's a metabolic pathways poster that my professor gave me at the end of metabolism. I think it's a great decoration. Some people think I'm weird. Em definitely makes fun of me sometimes for being such an orgo nerd. So besides studying molecular biology and biochemistry, I'm involved in a few different clubs on campus. I do a lot of activities with the Middlebury College Mountain Club. I have a work study job where I'm a snowboard instructor at the Snow Bowl, which is like 20 minutes just up the road. So you'll find me there basically any day in the winter time. And I work at the help desk. So I do a lot of IT work, fixing people's Wi-Fi's, and like when the printer's out of paper, I go restock it. Um, but not too long ago, I was in your shoes, kind of wondering like, where am I going to go to college where am I going to live for the next 4 or so years of my life? And I didn't really know where I wanted to go, but I did know what I wanted to do. I've always been really interested in science, and I actually did an internship between junior and senior year of high school, and it was a really great experience. I learned a lot about like computer coding and research and working in a lab. The only issue was the professor I was working with was not a great communicator. Everybody was a little confused whenever they spoke with him or emailed with him. We just didn't exactly always know what was going on. And I realized, okay, I really want to study science in a really academic and rigorous institution, but I want to become a stronger communicator so that I can take what I'm learning in science and share that with other scientists, but also with people who don't study science. And so I can easily tell Em about the research I'm doing in a way that she will understand, even though she's not a heavy STEM major. And so I started looking at schools that have like the liberal arts education where you're going to learn a little bit of everything. And I really fell in love with Middlebury, partly because of how many resources it has, but also because of the way the school is set up. So this is a class that I actually got to sit on during preview days. I wish that you could all come visit us in person, but instead I'll just tell you about how great it was, and you can pretend that you're visiting in person. So I sat in on this class. It was like an advanced biology course. I had no idea what was going on, but everyone in the class was really friendly. So me and another student were sitting there. Those students were shuffling in who were actually part of that class. And before he started the lecture, the professor just took a moment to acknowledge us. And he was like, hey, I just wanted to welcome these two students. He asked us to say our names, and then the rest of the class we were forgotten about. But it was just this really nice opening, being like, hey, there's these two students visiting here. And they just welcomed us into the class and let us sit in on their lecture. And I wish you could all do that today, but alas, no. Um, Something else that's really surprised me about Middlebury, besides how welcoming the professors are, is just the fact that your professors really get to know you. So this photograph is of one of the larger classrooms at Middlebury. And by larger, I mean there's like 35, maybe 40 people in the lecture hall, and that's a really big class. At mid, most classes are like 14 to 20 students. That's pretty typical of a class size. And this means that the professors and the students really get to know each other. And so at the end of lecture in this classroom that I was sitting in on, the professor actually went around handing back exams. And that was really like my high school experience where I knew my teachers, they knew me, everyone was on like, first name basis. And I really enjoyed that experience. And I was kind of spooked and scared of like this idea of college where I'd be in these massive lecture halls and I wouldn't know anyone there and the professor would never know my name. I didn't at all want that. And so I really fell in love with this perfect student to professor ratio that is occurring at Middlebury. Something else that really surprised me is the honor code, which is this agreement between students and professors that basically you won't cheat on any exams. I say I've neither given nor received unauthorized aid on this assignment on basically everything I submit. And it means that my exams are basically all unproctored. So my professor gives me the exam and he's like, hey, this is a 2-hour exam. I need it back in by the end of the week. So maybe in the next 3 days, take it wherever you'd like. And so I can go to my favorite little study desk in the library and I can just take it there. When 2 hours are up, I'm like, all right, 2 hours are up. And then I bring it back to him. And for me, that takes so much of the stress out of learning and test taking. Because in high school, I was, studying for all these standardized tests because they used to be mandatory back then. And there was just this like fighting mentality of students wanting to get to the top of the class. And like I mentioned that I'm a pre-med student at Middlebury, and typically pre-med students are these super aggressive learners who won't share their notes with you, and they just want to get themselves into medical school and they don't care about anyone else. And that's not at all what I've found at Middlebury. In fact, it's been totally the opposite. I've found that students are willing to take what they've learned and share it with others. And the example I'll give is this is a photograph of my friend Sarah working on a chemistry problem set. And Sarah went to office hours because no one could figure this out. We're stuck on this terrible electron pairing question. And She goes to office hours, learns how to finish the problem, and she could have finished and submitted the problem set right then and there, but she knew that the rest of the class was meeting up later that evening. And she actually decided to come back to the rest of the class and say, look, this is what I learned in office hours. This is how the professor showed me how to approach this problem. Why don't you all try it this way? And then it all clicked for the rest of us. And that's exactly the learning environment that I found at Middlebury. It's where people come here who really want to learn, and they, are willing to go to their professor's hours and put in the time to do all their homework and the learning, but they also want to help you learn and help each other learn. And so that's what I've really come to love at Middlebury. Now, I did mention that I did research in high school, but it was all online. It was computer coding, and I didn't get to use any test tubes or anything. I've dreamed of using test tubes forever, and I finally got to at Middlebury. This is a picture I took of in my lab, which I've been in for the past 2.5, almost 3 years now. It was surprisingly easy to get an internship, and I think it's because Middlebury has so many resources in every department, in every field, every facet of life at Middlebury. There's research, there's resources and support for you. And so at the end of my second semester of chemistry, I went up to my professor and I said, hey, Rick, do you know of any labs that have openings this summer? And he was like, yeah, you could probably work in my lab. And we did like 2 pages of paperwork. And just like that, I had found myself an internship in a state-of-the-art research lab doing palladium catalyzed amination reactions, which was just fascinating. It was incredible to learn all these lab skills that I've used. This is going back to my sophomore year. So the summer after sophomore year of college. And I've been using these lab skills junior year, senior year, and I plan to use them after college, doing some research before I apply to medical school. And all of it was just because I went up to my professor at the end of class, near the end of the semester, and said, hey, can I work in your lab this summer? That was all it took. We also had a lot of fun in the lab. We played this game called Name That Drink, because each of these little vials that you see on screen would be like yellow or red or orange. And we were always like, all right, looks like today we've made like strawberry banana smoothies. And other days it was like, looks like it has cinnamon in it or something. But we would never try anything because it was really toxic what we were working with. But we definitely had a lot of fun along the way. And then we'd take the vials and we'd run our analyses on the gas chromatography mass spec machine and continue with our research. But it was definitely a lot of fun. Now, I do want to just touch upon the fact that Middlebury is a residential campus, which is different from a lot of other schools. It means that everyone lives on campus. Well, not everyone, 97% of the student body lives on campus. The other 3% lives across the street. And what this means is there's so much to do on campus because everyone lives here. So no matter what organizations or clubs you're part of, your housemates or people living down the hall will be inviting you to different events, or you'll just walk by an event taking place outside and you'll be welcomed in. And so I saw like students making ice sculptures outside their dorm when it was a little colder. And they were like, hey, come on over. And I didn't even know any of them. And they were just inviting me to carve ice sculptures with them. And so that's the kind of vibe we have at Middlebury, where you're just welcomed into events, whether or not you know the people, whether or not you're part of the club, because everyone wants to just hang out and have a good time. So we definitely have a lot going on campus, but I wanted to talk a little bit about reaching out to the rest of the Vermont community, because it can be a little bit isolating to live in a college campus. Everybody's your age. Everything you need is on campus because we have unlimited dining plans. So you can just go to the dining hall and eat whenever you want. We have like a convenience drugstore on campus, so you can get anything you need on campus, and all your classes and all your friends are on campus. So you don't really ever need to go into town. That being said, students love to go into town. The town of Middlebury is great. I don't know who's been there or not, but definitely worth driving through because it's a lovely town. And one program that I've been part of that's really connected me to folks in town is a mentorship program called Community Friends. And I was paired with my mentee about 2 years ago. His name's Ben, and he was 8 years old. He's 10 now. And what we do is we just play with each other for about 2 hours every week. For him, it's a great opportunity to be around college students who are theoretically more mature than his 10-year-old friends, although I can't vouch for everyone here. And for me, it's a great break from the academics. I love just running around with little kids. Sometimes we'll play soccer. Other times we'll play hide and seek with walkie-talkies. During COVID, we've been playing Battleship over FaceTime. we just have a lot of fun together. And it's a really great way for me to kind of get out into the community. Sometimes we'll go biking through town together, or he'll show me where his favorite swim spots are. And it's just kind of made me feel almost like an adopted Vermont by him and his family kind of welcoming me into the area and showing me the lay of the land. Speaking of the land, you all know how beautiful Vermont is, so I don't need to tell you that it's an amazing place to live. But what I will tell you is that living here kind of on Middlebury's campus gives you such access to resources that you might not have at other institutions. And so one example I like to bring up is a business that my friends and I started based on the land. And what we do is we make little models of like topographic terrain models of mountains, which we've been inspired to do based on the land around us. We've got the Green Mountains in the east and the Adirondack Mountains in the west. And wherever you go on campus, you can see at least one of those ranges, if not both. And it's because of all the different departments on campus that our project, which was once just an idea and a gift we made for a friend, has now become a small business that we're trying to register and become an official Vermont business. And that's all been possible because of all the resources that Middlebury has. Now, another resource that's been really important to me is the Mountain Club, particularly their gear room. So I'm from New York, and I showed up without any of the cool backpacking equipment that some of my friends had. However, I was able to borrow all that gear from the gear room. So I could get everything you see in this photograph. I could get my backpack, I could get my cross-country skis, we're walking on snowshoes too in this photograph, a warm sleeping bag, everything came from the gear room and it was free. It was like renting a book. I showed up, I said, here's everything I need. They were like, whoa, that's a lot of things. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not from Vermont, so I need a lot of things in order to survive in the wintertime out here and go on this camping trip. So they gave me everything I needed and they said, bring it back in a week. And I did. And just big shout out to the Mountain Club for making that possible. I do want to wrap up just by mentioning that I studied abroad. And at Middlebury, around 60% of the student body tends to study abroad their junior year. I loved studying abroad. I went to Poitiers, France, which is, someone told me, is the Iowa of France. It's like in the middle of nowhere, which was the closest thing I could find to from being in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, except that I was in France. So I had a blast there, but it was definitely a challenge adapting to this new lifestyle where everything's in French and there's different customs and it's a whole new culture. And that was definitely a little tough. But luckily I had this huge support network from Middlebury of a special advisor who was helping me with all the paperwork. The Student Financial Services Office was helping me figure out how tuition was going to work because I'm on financial aid here at Middlebury. And then how is that going to work while overseas? They helped me sort all that jazz out. And then all my friends, a lot of them had already studied abroad the semester before me. And they were like, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to make it through the first few weeks and then you're going to be perfect at French. It's all going to be all right. And so just a big shout out to everybody who's made life and studying abroad possible at Middlebury. So thank you so much for listening. Here are our email addresses. If you have any other questions that we don't get to today, or you're watching a recorded version of this video, please feel free to reach out to either Em or myself, and we will be happy to answer any questions you have over email.
Absolutely. So now feel free, if you would like to, and are in a space that allows you to, turn on your cameras. We'd love to see your smiling faces. And ask us any questions you may have. We're just going to start with a few that are in the chat right now already. Middlebury is test optional, yes, due to the barriers of the COVID pandemic, as well as the tests themselves. You do not have to submit any test scores to the college. If you somehow find a test site within the next year to take one, you can send those scores in if you would like, but we're completely test optional. So no worries about that. And then I have never heard that Middlebury encourages no computer note taking. I certainly take notes in my computer in classes. Some courses I do prefer handwritten notes, but I've never heard no computer note taking, that's for sure. I think a lot of professors do sort of take note of the accessibility of courses and realizing that a lot of students learn different ways. So there are definitely no barriers to how and notes are supposed to be taken for classes, that's for sure. Then, Alex, you want to hit the study abroad one?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a question, how long did you stay abroad for and how flexible was it for you based on your major? Were options limited if you were pre-med? So I'll tell you that for pre-med requirements, all pre-med requirements must be done within the US in English as a language. So no pre-med in other countries, not in other languages. That being said, that has not been an issue at all. I've been able to fulfill all my requirements while at Middlebury, and I was able to study whatever I wanted abroad. I chose to go to a school that had more of a STEM focus. And so I did a lot of my major requirements while abroad. It was definitely hard to study molecular biology in French. That was a challenge that I did not expect to be so difficult. But I actually completed a lot of checklist requirements while abroad. And I was there for 1 semester. And it was supposed to continue on into the summer doing an internship, but I came home early because of COVID. So I hope that answers your question.
Feel free to just raise your hands manually or use the raise hand function.
Emma, I have a question for you. What's it like to be a Feb? Because neither of us really talked about that, and I might not know what being a Feb is.
For sure. So another great part about the Middlebury admissions is that we have a program called the FEBS, short for February, and this is every year where a cohort of around 80 to 100 of the incoming first years, they do not arrive to campus until February. So they get to go on a half gap year of sorts. We call it their FEBmester, and it's really a period where they can do anything they want, whether it's traveling, volunteering, working, spending time with a passion that they hadn't had enough time to dedicate to before then. And then they join us in February at the start of our spring semester. And it's a really great time to sort of refresh campus with some new life and some new students each year. And you get the whole full 4 years still. Then you graduate again 4 years later in a very special ceremony where you actually ski down the snow bowl in your caps and gowns. And it's such a sight to see. So if you're interested in being considered as a February admit, then there are some spots on the application with just some questions that gauge your interest right on there.
Yeah, awesome. There's a question, how did you decide that Middlebury was for you? And there were really 3 things that led to me picking Middlebury: the people, the place, and the academics. I mentioned in my presentation that academics, there's really strong sciences here in addition to communication skills. So that was huge for me. I also love Vermont, and I really wanted to be living in a place where I could just go on a run and end up in a dirt road running between cow farms. So that was really big for me. And the last thing, which I think was the most important aspect in my decision, was the people. And I just got the vibe from Middlebury that it was this really friendly place where people were not too stressed about their work and they were still doing really well academically, but it wasn't a stressful lifestyle. And so that's what really brought me to Middlebury.
Yeah, for myself, visiting campus was definitely sort of helpful in making that decision because I was able to feel the community sort of aspect here and just see like how welcoming and excited all the students were to learn. I think that's really what stood out to me is just how naturally curious all the students were in class and outside of class as well. That's not like just, inside the classroom you're learning and then you're done for the day. I remember visiting one of the dining halls and I heard some students practicing their Portuguese behind me in line for food. They just come out of a language drill session. And sort of, I heard some like other students talking about their physics projects that they were working on. So it was just really exciting to be around other students who were as excited to learn and curious to learn as I was. And then I'm also just like very grateful to the financial aid office here at Middlebury as well for allowing me the opportunity to come here and to be able to afford to come here. And I definitely wouldn't have been here without their help. So that was also a determining factor for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and about 50% of the student body is on financial aid here at Mid. So people come from all kinds of different backgrounds where some people are getting a full ride and other people are paying, like 70, almost $50,000 in tuition. So there's definitely an economic sort of diversity of the student body here.
For
So I
sure.
see a question about housing. What's it like, especially your first year dorm? And Em mentioned that housing is split up into two like first year kind of clusters on campus where all the first years are in a building together and the students in that building tend to be in first year seminars together, which is totally true. And within that building, you're probably going to be in a double in your first year. It's going to be someone who identifies as the same gender. And within your hall, it might be a co-ed hallway, but your roommate is going to probably be the same gender as you. Um, After your first year, it's kind of whatever you want. Middlebury encourages you to kind of stay within that cluster of a building and move to where the sophomore cluster is. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. A lot of the upperclassmen housing is more like houses or townhouse style or apartment style housing or suites. And so after your first year, you can start applying to like the bigger houses, or you can go get a suite with your friends, or you could all get singles that are like in the same hallway. It's totally up to you. We don't have fraternities or sororities here at Middlebury. Instead, we have like social and interest housing, which is basically people who are interested in the same thing or interested in socializing. So I lived in the outdoor interest house last year, and it was basically a bunch of really outdoorsy people. And if anyone ever wanted to go on an adventure, they just like hit up the house chat. And they're like, "Hey, who wants to go rock climbing this afternoon?" And then you'd get a carload full of people like instantly.
Have you ever considered the language housing like the French house, Alex?
Yeah, so for folks who don't know, language housing is this really cool opportunity at Middlebury for you to practice your languages because we really love language here at Middlebury. And so one of the housing options after your first year is to move into a language house where you will just speak that language when you're home. Obviously, if you have someone like a friend over who doesn't speak that language, you can speak English or whatever you want with them. But say, for instance, if I choose to live in the French house, then whenever I'm home, me and my housemates will be speaking exclusively French. So it's a really great opportunity to practice language before going abroad. Or if you don't plan on going abroad, but you want to live in an immersed experience, that's another reason to move into language housing. I personally never lived in the French house, but I have friends that have lived there, and I've gone to events at the French house because the French club is kind of based out of there, and it's a really fun place to be.
Ooh, favorite memory, or actually, before we hit that one, I'm just looking at the time here. Does Middlebury have resources that help students find jobs or internships? Yes, absolutely. We have a really great resource called the Center for Careers and Internships, the CCI for short. At Mid, we shorten like everything. Um, and this is a resource on campus with a lots of different sort of advisors that are there to help you find anything from jobs to internships to funding for internships to helping you make a resume or write a cover letter to check those things to help you prepare for an interview and everything in between. And it's not just like it's not just for juniors and seniors. They're there for you the moment you step foot on campus and become a student. And they're also there for you after you graduate as well. So they're a really great resource to helping you get on your way and find your opportunities for your non-Middlebury academic sort of endeavors. I've used them in the past for a lot of different things, for helping me fund for helping me fund summer internships and jobs, to finding some in-semester internships and connecting with alumni as well. So they're really helpful in that regard. All right, this is a really great one. It's one of my favorites. Alex, do you have a favorite memory from your time at Middlebury so far, and or a most fun, unexpected activity?
Yeah, my favorite event here at Middlebury, and I'll try to make this quick because I know we're at like 4:15 right now. But real quick, there's an arts festival that happens every spring, Nocturne, where the entire campus is converted into an interactive art museum. So just imagine that your high school is suddenly transformed. You go back one evening, and in the cafeteria, there's live music and a bunch of bands playing. And you go into some of the classrooms, and there's a bunch of sculptures and paintings that students have done all set up. And then you go into the gymnasium and there's like glow in the dark chalk for you to play with. And that's what happens once you're at Middlebury. So that's hands down my favorite tradition. It's called Nocturne. It's a great festival that's coming up in a few weeks.
For myself, I really love any events that really show off our school spirit, whether it is homecoming in the fall, where they're just like apple cider donuts galore all across campus. I eat probably 50 of them in a week. And I get to really embrace our Vermontness and teach all my friends, we take them going apple picking and pumpkin carving and all those sort of things, hay rides, um, everything that's great about like a Vermont fall. But I would think my favorite tradition is Winter Carnival, which happens right at the start of the spring semester. It's a whole week of just activities and pop up events and student performances, endless gallons of hot chocolate at like every corner on campus. Every fireplace is lit up, and all leading up to the weekend where we have a bunch of different ski races at the Snow Bowl in Reichert, and they just bus us up in loads to those areas to cheer on our ski teams, which they win quite often, which is pretty fun. And then we all get dressed up that evening for the Winter Carnival ball, which is kind of like our version of like a college prom. So that's very fun. They get some cool artists that come in as well. Um, what if I know exactly what I want to study? Why should I consider a liberal arts college like Mid? Very good question. I would think uh, the great part about liberal arts colleges like Middlebury is that even though you may be really certain that you want to study this one specific thing, you can really gain a lot from being able to go to a place where you can take courses in other majors and other focuses. Middlebury not only lets us do that, but also encourages us to do so. One of my great memories, even though I'm not a lab sciences person, was taking an environmental geology course one of my first semesters here. I had a really great time going in labs, looking and talking about rocks. And even though I'm very sort of humanities arts heavy, that was definitely helpful in learning different things. I also entered into college thinking I was going to major in political science and math with some music, and that changed very quickly. Um, and so being able to go to some place where you are allowed to like change your major so easily is definitely helpful in that regard. What about you, Alex? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I came to Middlebury knowing exactly that I was going to study molecular biology and biochemistry, and I've been exposed to so many great disciplines. I can't even begin to start telling you about all the great things that I've learned about. Through like the neuro club, one time I went to like a brain dissection. I actually got to like dissect a brain, which was really cool. I'm enrolled in a dance class this semester, and I'm a very uncoordinated person, so I never thought I'd really come to enjoy learning dance, and I love my improv dance class. So there's just part of coming to a liberal arts place is that students from everywhere interested in everything are coming together in one place to learn together and to share their experiences and knowledge with each other. And so just being exposed to all these great opportunities is really what I love about being here at Middlebury. I do want to answer this question about clubs and extracurriculars and how they support new students in first years. And I'll tell you that it's really exciting. What happens is when you arrive to campus, we have a week-long orientation. And so that's led by our residential life team, which is a combination of adults and student staff members. And then you go on an orientation trip led by a bunch of older students. And so you're already starting to get to know folks who already go to Middlebury College. And then at the end of the first week of classes, we have a clubs fair. And on one of the big college greens, we set up like hundreds and hundreds of different picnic tables. And every club shows up and they've got cupcakes and they've got candy and they're just trying to recruit you and they want your email address because they want you to join their club. And it's so much fun just walking around and everyone's trying to get you to join their club. And through that fair, you'll be integrated into whatever clubs you want to go try.
Yeah, club fair is one of my favorite days to happen all semester. And then we do it again for the February admits at the beginning of spring semester as well. Before I went to Middlebury, I did a lot of sports and performing arts, but I really enjoyed, finding clubs I never thought I would join, even just to try something once. I'd never gone rock climbing other than like to like Petra Cliffs one time in fifth grade. So being able to like get on the email list for the climbing wall was very fun. Same with like the ice skating club and just trying new things. Maybe not going back many times, but trying new things was very fun.
I definitely tried going to like a lot of different clubs at least once my first year just to get a taste of what it was like.
Is Quidditch a popular thing in Middlebury? Yes. Um, one of our fun facts, I guess, is that the game of Quidditch, like from the Harry Potter series, the physical game of it was created here at Middlebury from some students and has since grown into an international sport. So there's always a very vibrant Quidditch team here on campus. When there's not a pandemic going on, they travel around the country. They play other schools. They have a really great time doing that. And of course, like you don't have to be a varsity Quidditch player before coming to Middlebury to join that either. You can learn right when you get here, as well as all the other club sports and activities here too.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to put my email address in the chat in case anyone has any more questions, because we are happy to go ahead and answer those if you have more that you aren't thinking of right now. And Em just did the same. So feel free to reach out to us and we will happily answer your questions.